You've had a career that people might consider as the American dream, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it turned out very well for you. What were you like as a kid? Were you a tough guy? Were you a punk? Were you a rowdy, troublemaker?
Very quiet and shy.
Yeah.
Extremely. To the extreme.
Then how did you become interested in martial arts? Did you have trouble? Were you pushed around and stuff? Were you bullied?
No, actually, when I went in the service and I went to Korea, that's when I got exposed to it for the first time. When I went to Korea, I only heard of judo, so I jumped into a judo class in base. In the second week in the training, I broke my shoulder. So
in the class, you broke your
in the
shoulder?
class, yeah. So I'm walking out in the village a couple days later, just sightseeing. And as I'm walking through the village, I look up kind of a knoll, and I see these heads popping up. I look up and I go, wonder what's going on up there. So I walk up on the knoll, and here's these Koreans jumping up in the air, doing these fantastic kicks. And I was mesmerized by their ability. But they looked mean, so I was afraid to go over and talk to them. So I went back to the base and asked my judo instructor what it was. And he told me it was called Tong Soo Do, now it's called Taekwondo.
Yeah. Now, what's the difference? There's a lot of these disciplines. Judo is what, essentially?
Judo is like wrestling. It's grabbing and throwing each other.
Taekwondo?
Taekwondo is the Korean word for karate. Karate is a Japanese word. Then Kung Fu is a Chinese word. So each one has their own name.
But it's essentially those three, and they're all kind of a mixture of each other?
Yeah, then they're all offshoots from there.
And what is golf? What is that idea?
I know nothing about that one.
And you were recently at the White House, huh?
Yeah, last Thursday, yeah.
Now, how did that happen? Were you angling for an invitation, or did it just in the mail one day come to the White House?
No, I was here in New York on my book tour, and I got a call saying I'd been invited to the White House Thursday.
Now, were you surprised by that?
Shocked, more than surprised. I was shocked, and anyway, so
Who was the dinner for? I hate to keep interrupting here, but who was it?
The Egyptian president.
And they put together just a group of interesting Americans to attend these functions, I guess. Is that how that works?
Yeah, it was from everyone, everyone, business, mostly business people.
Yeah.
There wasn't too many politicians there. I sat at the table with George Shultz. My wife sat with George Bush. And it was funny because George Bush is these little bowls, little water things where you put your fingers in to wash. And he had a little plant in there. And so George Bush says, well, this is some plant. My wife says, no, it's a petunia, George.
Right.
George says, no, it isn't, Diane. It's a whatever he called it. She says, no, it's a petunia.
Yeah. He
says, why are you doing this? He says, I just want to argue with you. He says, look, haven't I argued enough with Dan Rather this week? And she says, look, if you say it's a petunia, I'll vote for you.
Yeah. Did you get a sense that these people actually knew who you were? Did you get the feeling that Ronald Reagan has seen your films and stuff?
I don't think he has. I don't think.
Well, didn't you feel kind of silly being there then?
Well, I'll tell you. Silly?
Yeah, I mean, I would feel like a complete jerk if I get an invitation in the mail and it says, Nancy and I would like you to come and have dinner with us. Now, I know for a fact the guy has never seen this show. So I'm sitting there and, he thinks, I don't know, I'm on ESPN or something.
Well, truthfully, I don't even know why I got invited. I called my wife up in the Caribbean. I said, look, we've been invited to the White House.
Right.
And so meet me in D.C. And why they invited me, I don't even know.
What'd you have to eat?
We had veal.
Yeah. And what, it's like a big 8-course meal or something?
Oh, yeah. I was watching to figure out which fork and all this. It's real fancy kind of thing. And so I'm watching
Who cut the president's meat? Oh, no. But did you get to talk to Ronald Reagan?
Yeah, in fact, I was doing the Larry King show that night, so I had to leave early. And so as we were getting ready to leave, they said the president would like to see you. So I trekked over there and met with him.
What was the exchange?
Just in thanking me for coming, and I said, thank you. It's nice to be here.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. I mean, it certainly is an experience, isn't it?
Oh, it's a tremendous experience.
A long time ago, you were on our morning show.
That's right.
Was that before you were in films, or were you doing films?
No, I was doing films. I just started my career, actually.
What did you do before you got into the films? Because you didn't really set out to be an actor.
No, I had karate schools. Yeah. What got me into films, I had sold my schools to a conglomerate with the expectations of going national, and it didn't work out that way, and we went broke. And so I lost all my schools. So I was teaching private lessons to supplement, to pay for my bills.
This is in Southern California?
And Steve McQueen was one of my students, and he said, well, what are you going to do now that you don't have any karate schools anymore? I said, I don't know. He says, well, have you thought about acting? I said, man, I haven't done a high school play. And he said, well, acting is more than just having experience as an actor's presence. And he says, I don't know if you have it or not, but you should give it a try. And I said, well, what do I do? He said, well, you take acting classes. So I called up the acting schools, and they're expensive. They run $500 or $600 a month. And I didn't have any money. So I started looking through the yellow pages, and I found an acting school I could go on my GI Bill. So that's how I started.
No kidding.
Yeah.
What kind of guy was Steve McQueen?
He was a great guy. He
Yeah.
was actually what you saw on the screen was kind of his persona.
Yeah.
You know.
He was great. He talk about presence. He had that presence.
He really did. You know, we did.
Was he a hard guy? Was he a tough guy? I mean, or
I got to tell you a funny story about him. You know, he was married to Ally McGraw when I was teaching him, and Steve was real stiff. He was real tight. And so Ally said, "Why don't you guys come to my stretching class?" She went to a stretching class in Beverly Hills, and so we decided to go down
I love
there. Right?
these stories. A stretching class in Beverly Hills.
So we go down there, and here's Susan
People
Day.
here in New York are eating tires for lunch, and in Beverly Hills, they got stretching classes.
So we go in there, here's Susan Day and Shirley Jones and Ally McGraw. And this guy, instructor walks up with two little skimpy little things about this big, and he says, "Put these on." One was pink and one was blue, and I grabbed the blue one. So Steve got the, so we walk into a dressing room, and it's like these things, I mean, that much. And we put them on, and Steve says, "No way am I going out like this." I said, "Look, Steve, go out there like we've been doing it for 10 years. No one will notice." So he says, "Okay." So we walk out of the room. As he walks out, I grab the door and I pull the door and I hold it shut. So he can't. And he's pulling on the door, but I won't let him in. So finally he walks out there, and I hear the women laughing up a storm. Right? They're laughing. So after about 2 minutes, it finally subsided. So I walk out there, and he's sitting down talking to them, and he's giving me the meanest look.
Yeah, that's funny. He's one of he's one of those guys you would wish he was still around, because it would be interesting to see how he aged on screen. You know, just what kind of a character he would become. Because
he got tougher. He was a tough karate guy.
Yeah,
he was one of the toughest students I worked out with.
How many films have you made?
17.
And these things do huge business, don't they?
Pretty good, yeah.
Yeah. Like, what was the most money you generated with movies?
Probably Missing in Action 1 was my biggest gross.
How much dough?
Domestically, probably around 40 million.
40 million. And what did
Well, that's, like, compared to Stallone's, it's not very much, but it's...
What did it cost to produce?
It cost about $6 million.
Oh, my. That's a pretty good return there, isn't it? Yeah.
For Canon Films, not me.
Yeah. What was your first speaking part?
Oh, I did a movie, 1968. I did a film called The Wrecking Crew with Dean Martin. I was still fighting. I just won the world title, and the producer of the Dean Martin, Matt Helm series, was in the audience, and he walks up to me and said, introduced himself, said, "Would you like to be in a Dean Martin movie?" I go, "Yeah." I got really excited. So he says, "Okay, well, come by and get a script." So I get the script, and I got one line. And the scene is, I'm bodyguarding Nigel Green and Elkie Summer, and Dean Martin walks into this bar, and as he's walking down the aisle, I'm supposed to jump up in front of him and say, "May I, Mr. Helm?" It means I want his gun. So I start trying to figure out this line. For 2 weeks, I'm saying, how should I say this? Should I say it cool or, aggressive or whatever? So the day of the shoot, cameras start rolling. He walks in. All of a sudden, I can feel my body tensing up and my neck muscle starting to tighten. Yeah. And just as he walks up to me, I jump. I go, "Man, Mr. Helm." My voice tightened up and nothing came out. Of course, they could care less.
Anyway, you've done pretty well in spite of that. The Secret of Inner Strength. This is your own story right here. Oh, there's... Get him! Chuck, go out there and drop him, just like with a kick or something. Just go ahead and kick him in the... Just don't kill him, just like in the stern.
Just
boom!
a light touch.
Yeah, just bruise him up a little bit.
Well, Dave, I was on the show.
Yeah, I know you were on the show. Anyway, good luck. Good to see you again, Chuck. Thanks for coming back. We got to pause here for station.